Uh, because of variety of reasons, we have not been able to arrange Baithaks for the past almost 1 year. But I told my age, don't increase, but it is increasing. I can't help it. So I am 98 now, and therefore, and then Ganesh Kumarji is an in-sync organizer, so he can do everything he likes. So he gave me the idea that we are not having any South Indian musicians invited. And as it happened, our great master, Lalgudi Vijayalakshmi's son and daughter, they are here. And it is my great privilege to welcome them. I had the small privilege of meeting your father when I had gone to Chennai and elsewhere, and when he had a concert here. From your face I can see that the innocence that Lalgudi ji had, you have inherited that. Because उनका बजाने में बोइंग में वो innocence दिखाई देती थी. So today we have had a very happy situation that he has the concert here. And हो गया क्या अभी हो गया. So we requested him to join us here, and which he has kindly agreed. Our audience, I may explain to you, are involved in Hindustani music. Up till now, whatever Baithaks, we have got 40 or 50. I think the 54th was the last one. But therefore, I may request you to kindly, in very short words, explain what you are going to play, sing, so that it might become easier, even for me, to understand the meaning or the urge behind the music which you have. So if you would, again thank you and thank you for coming. I should also thank Ganesh Kumarji for making all this arrangement possible. उसके लिए लेफ्ट हैंड का काम है वो, लेकिन it was very nice of him to arrange everything, and our thanks also to him for. May I request you to kindly speak a few words.
With pranams to Pandit Arvind ji, and namaskar to all the elite musical audience present here. It's indeed a great honor to be presenting, to be representing a system of music to our brothers and sisters, our counterparts. Sometimes we have remained as watertight compartments, and sometimes interactions take place. But such talks, giving insights about the music, will definitely help understanding of not only the Carnatic system, but it will, from your questions, we would gain a lot of knowledge about the North Indian Hindustani system. And of course, Shri Ganesh Kumar ji is instrumental in arranging this beautiful interactive session, and I'm happy to introduce Guru Raghavendra on the Mridangam. A very popular artist, and probably you can say a few words.
It is always, firstly, pranams to Pandit Arvind ji. It's always a pleasure to share
Loudly.
It's always a pleasure to share a lot of information and to receive a lot of information about music. In such interactive sessions, I think it becomes very easy, it becomes very enjoyable when we are able to have questions from you or to look forward to your questions and to be able to share our experience and about our Guru and Father. It only, every single time when we share something like this, I feel we also grow and we do learn a lot. So I look forward to this evening and thank you to Shri Ganesh for making this evening. It's already very beautiful with all the audience. Looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Good evening to all. For the sake of the Carnatic audience who are going to listen to this Baithak program in future, a few opening remarks about Arvind. Arvind has been the mainstay of classical music in India as a facilitator, as a catalyst, as an accelerator, as an enabler, as a platform, and all that beautiful things that can happen to classical music have happened to Pandit Arvind Parikh for the last almost 6-7 decades. And he mentioned his age, but I don't think age is only a number. But the kind of enthusiasm that he has and the kind of enthusiasm that he builds in others who rub with him is something that's amazing. And especially for me, it's a kind of a role model. I have learned a lot from him. The only aspect that I have always been trying to impress upon him is to share ideas and the features of the Carnatic music with Hindustani music and vice versa. And many years back we did the Uttar Dakshin series. It was a set of about 5 episodes all over the country where Arvind Bhai took the lead and ensured that the Carnatic and the Hindustani artists can interact with each other in terms of the vocal aspects, the instrumental aspects, the percussive aspects. So that was a beautiful series, and this is only a continuation. Any exchange of ideas with the interested Rasikas is a very happy, joyous moment for all of us. So having said that, Lalgudi Vijayalakshmi was a phenomenon. It was not just a violin player. He was a violin player, he was a thinker, he was a composer, he was a musicologist. And I would rob a few phrases that you had mentioned in the morning. There are 2 aspects to any good classical music. One is the melodic elegance, and the second is the rhythmic brilliance. Now, Carnatic music stands out when it comes to the melodic aspects of music because it's a very serene, divine, spiritual kind of an offering to the Almighty. And the essence of Carnatic music is more towards the melodic aspects. But of late, you find a slight shift towards the rhythmic aspect of classical music presentation. And I would rather say Lalgudi Vijayalakshmi was the first one to have attempted both and brought out the essence of both through his Tilanas and the new aspects of rendering Carnatic music. So here we have Lalgudi Vijayalakshmi, who was a colossal, is a huge figure, and he looked, like Arvind Bhai rightly mentioned, very simple, very innocent. But when it comes to his music, it was very complicated, very intellectual. So that was what Lalgudi Vijayalakshmi was. And his children, both G.J.R. Krishnan and Vijayalakshmi ji, have not only taken forward the legacy, but they have also embellished it with their own contribution, with their own finer nuances which they have added. Not only as a solo player, as a joint presentation, even today they accompany big artists from the Carnatic fraternity. So they have taken it much forward, and I'm only happy that we have had this opportunity to meet all of you. And with that, my first request to you would be to speak a few words about the legacy, how it happened, your childhood. Was it an organic induction into music, or was it a kind of a forced induction into music? Because musical families are very regimented, especially in the South. Unless you sing a ragam, you can't get your first glass of milk. So that's how the families live in the interiors of South India. So how was it?
It is such a blessing to talk about our lineage. We belong to the 5th generation of musicians in a family of Sishya Parampara. Our Guru and Father's great-grandfather was a direct disciple of Saint Tyagaraja, the composer, the great composer, one of the Trinity composers.
Wow.
And he was the first vocalist that we know in the family. His son, Shri Lalgudi Krishnan Maladi, was the first violinist in the family. And his son, that is our grandfather and our Guru's father, was also a great genius and a violinist and also a multi-faceted personality, Valadi Gopala Iyer. He was also a composer, and of course our Guru, Shri Lalgudi Vijayalakshmi. We started our learning at the age of 5, which is very natural in any music family because we grow up with music right from the cradle. Every dialogue, every conversation is music in the family. But in the Lalgudi lineage, vocal music is very important. Though the violin is the instrument through which we convey our music, we all learn to sing first. So, right from the age of 5, we are taught to sing the sargams and short, small geets and songs. And then the violin comes at the age of 6, we are given the violin, so that every mean, every nuance, every intonation, every gamakam can be visualized in the mind, in the throat, and then it comes to the instrument. So that is mainly the essence of the Lalgudi Bani. And of course, Anna is senior to me, and I joined him later. He started his musical career accompanying our Guru right from the age of 13, and slowly I joined him, and then we also had the blessing of playing with our Guru as a violin trio, and that's how our journey has come this far.
I just want to add the great advantage that our generation, when we were kids, had was that we didn't have any invader inside our house in the form of a mobile or a media. So the concentration was much better, and we did not know the external world until we walked out or moved out of the house. So we were always in an ambience that was resonating with music. There used to come many students to take lessons. There used to be musicians who discussed music, even though we were not at an age to understand all of that, but it has been internalized in the form of osmosis. Without our realizing it, it has entered our system, and that is how we are so blessed. And it comes out when we play, even without our conscious direction or thought. So that way, the generation, we are really blessed.
Wonderful.
That was a very brief introduction into your childhood. But I can imagine that in your family, you were in T Nagar, which is considered to be the citadel of Carnatic music. And you must have, in your childhood, even played with the giants of Carnatic music who always visited your house. And Appa was so friendly with almost all of them. And without possibly realizing one is the conscious approach to music, but as a subconscious approach, it just got into you. Pandit Arvind Parikh ji always was wondering, since the instrumental music in Carnatic fraternity is nothing but repetition of the compositions which you already have for the vocal music. Whereas in the Hindustani system, each instrument has its own methodology, has its own library to play the music. So that is the aspect of Manodharma, the point where you are able to take off from the structure but explore on your own the raga, alapana or what have you. So that is one aspect. Second is, we mentioned about your carrying forward the journey from what your father left. So I could realize even in the morning concert that we had today, there is a lot of complementarity. That when you play in the Neraval one portion, Vijayalakshmi joins it, but something very different. So first is the Manodharma aspect. Second, that complementarity, which you could also demonstrate through a raga, how you complement each other so beautifully.
In the Carnatic system of music, compositions are very, very important, because compositions are where the ragas, pakkads are documented. If I were to play a raga elaboration, like taking Ananda Bhairavi, which has a lot of time-honored phrases in it, for me to understand the raga, it will be helpful to learn at least 3 or 4 compositions in that raga, from which I can extract, understand the essence of the raga, the pakkads, the time-honored phrases. For example, in Ananda Bhairavi, this pakkad, the song, the composition, teaches me the phrases. So, therefore, compositions are very important. Coming to the point of improvisation, even in the compositions, there's a lot of scope for improvisation. Like, we can show our individuality a little bit. My interpretation of the composition, as in the Lalgudi Parampara, how the compositions are handled, will be very different from if you take a legend like Shri and Balasubramaniam or any other master. They will handle the composition differently. The basic structure of the composition will be the same, but in between there will be small pockets or spaces where we can put our individuality, and that becomes the patantaram. If you want to listen to Nadhaloludai, Najivadara, the Lalgudi lineage, my guru, what he has played, it stands as like a jewel. Apart from the compositions, outside the composition, Manodharmam is there in Raga Alapana, and then Kalpanaswara, which follows the Kriti. Kalpanaswaras are, it's a notion in itself, because there is a lot of math happening, a lot of chord-wise and mathematical patterns are spontaneously created, and the Sawal Jawab, that improvisation is also important. Neraval is another aspect where we highlight one line from the composition and we can elaborate, sticking to the meaning of the line. Won't you protect me, O Rama? Why do you take this long? If the line says that, that is the highlight of the composition. And we can keep that line and go about elaborating the raga. So Manodharmam is there within the composition also, with the help of line, and Manodharmam outside the composition as Raga Alapana, Raga Malikas, Ragam Thanam Pallavis. There's a huge scope for Manodharmam, and of course in a concert, compositions do take an important space.
Thank you, thank you.
I just want to add to that. We always have compositions only with lyrics. The intent of the composer and the grammar of the raga in which it has been set. Our tradition has been oral, in the sense without notation it has been passed on generation after generation. So even when you communicate orally, there is bound to be some distortion. So over the years, over the generations, some faults in the grammar could have crept in. So in this, I'm not saying that it is there only in this Bani. Our Guru took lot of care to see that the composition represented the spirit of the composer, represented the raga without deviating the grammar, the aroh and avroh. So if there were some blemishes here and there, without going away from the root, without drastically making a sea change, there would be a small correction here and there. And the mood of the composer, the mood of the composition would come out in full bloom. And another thing is, there is the Bani. When we play a composition, the notations could be the same, but in a different school it will be played differently. But in this school, that applies to any Bani. So that also adds to the interpretation of the composition. The Manodharma aspect has to be segregated from composition, but to add life, to not make it mechanical, we need to pump in some innovations without deviating from the mainstream. So that is where the artist contributes to the preservation of the composition. And an artist is not only defined by what he does, he is also defined by what he does not do. So there has to be a certain respect, restraint when you interpret the compositions. I just wanted to add that.
I hasten to add that unlike in the Hindustani system, when we say a composition, it is not just the poetry. The Vagyakaras have written the composition. They have also notated the composition. They have interpreted the composition, unlike in the Baddish form that you have in Hindustani, where there is a poetry and then you explain it, explore it in your way. No. In Carnatic music, what happens is the composition is already laid. The Vagyakaras, the ones who compose and sing, that is Vak and Geya. So Vagya, so they are known as Vagyakara. They have already given it a form, a substance, which you are supposed to follow. So if there is a little music now with whatever that you would like to demonstrate.
I think we have enough of
music. Bhajani.
I think people sitting here are ignorant, if I may use a strong word, of the finer quality, thinking, intricacies, techniques of, and I will end my saying only with one a very important instance which had happened in the past, where we had taken the initiative of inviting 6 great musicians from the south, Krishnan ji and lots of, and also from our side, that is Hindustani side, Zakir Bhai, and then we had a wonderful meeting with the president of Manmohan Singh at that time. And we said that north is north and south is south, but we should do something to bring them together. So we had a wonderful meeting with Manmohan Singh, which has been minuted. After that, the Minister of Culture issued a notification that they are appointing 100 gurus all over India, who will be very well paid, both from south and north. But then the situation changed, So no action was taken. Now I am just telling you is, it's too late for me in the day to do anything. But I think both the systems should learn from each other. And I think there is a lot to learn from the South. And I think some things from the North to the South. And I think now we should stop talking. Better to listen to him.
We would like to present a composition of Saint Tyagaraja in the Ragam Vasanta Bhairavi. It's a beautiful raga with an interesting avaropana. Sarigama Danisa Sanidama Pa Magarisa. So this twist in the avaropanam, when we listen to the composition, how beautifully the composition teaches how to approach the raga, we can see that. Me dhaya raga, won't I get your dhaya, Greece?
Every raga has to be looked at in a very romantic or a lyrical way. This avaroh, where Pancham is present after a twist, I would like to imagine this to be an oasis where water is in Pancham. the complementarity, it is like two people building a beautiful structure, and both should be in sync, not pun unintended. And nobody should, neither of us should be in tangential direction. And it also requires a balance of egos, where your ego becomes less, then the music will shine all the more.
call this rag? This
Ragathodu peru.
Vasanta Bhairavi.
Vasanta Bhairavi.
Vasanta Bhairavi.
Kadana Varavaro. That is the second part. The Anupallavi we call it. The Pallavi is the first section. Section B is Anupallavi. C is the Charana. Who is stopping you from being merciful, from being compassionate? So that is how a violinist, usually the vocalists say that the instruments are dumb instruments, but that limitation became an opportunity for my guru, and he transcended to make the violin speak. And I should also mention here that all the three artists must be in sync. If the percussion artist doesn't know the composition or the meaning, he would go tangentially, giving a robust support that will take away the charm of the composition. So he knows the composition.
Also in the Carnatic system, the Rasikas, the people who come to listen to the concerts, are reasonably well versed with the compositions. And the moment you take the first two notes, they exactly know which composition is going to follow. So you have to maintain that sense of accountability to the audience, because if you do anything which is inconsistent with the bhava of the composition, you don't get good marks. So the performer has to know the composition very well, and in fact that was the highlight of Lalgudi Vijayalakshmi. When he accompanied a vocalist, even if the vocalist was a little here and there, he would maintain the purity of the raga. He would bring out the essence of that raga. And I am only happy that two of you complement so well with the way you expand the raga. And that brings me to the next question. In the morning, we had a concert in the morning at the Finance Society, and he played what to the normal audience would sound like Gorak Kalyan. Till the time he landed on the Pancham, which was not there in Gorak Kalyan, and then he announced that this was Andolika, a very typical raga of Carnatic music. And then he said if you do a Grihavedam, it would step on to Hamsadhari. So I would like you to kind of present an aspect.
Now you see why I have requested Ganesh Kumar ji to say, I'll make a mess of it otherwise.
You know this raga.
It is the Aroh which has the Pancham. So when we try to do a lot of improvisation, we have to stick to the grammar. Sari ma pa ni da ma re, sari ma pa ni sa ni da ma. So we cannot mix it. So the raga flows very interestingly when you stick to the grammar and present it. ga pa re ga re sa sa ni pa re sa ni da ma re sa ni ni da ma re sa ni pa ga re sa. So the Graha Vedam, but we have to carefully avoid the Pancham here and take only that portion of the Raga where we don't need to play the Pancham and still give the Raga. In the Graha Vedam, it is important that we do justice to the Raga from which the Graha Veda comes. The source Raga. We have to stick to the grammar of it. We have to, still it should be heard as the source Raga, and only when you try to listen to the Graha Veda it should come out.
And not only the source Raga, but we have the tradition of not giving gamaks to Sancham and Pancham. So the main Sancham and Pancham should always be devoid of gamakam, even in the Graha Veda Raga.
You shifted the knee.
Nishadam.
Yeah. So the knee became Sancham. Ni da ma re sa ni pa ga re sa.
Are you please go?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Nagaswarali.
This is again an interesting raga called Nagaswarali. Sa ga ma pa da sa da pa ma ga sa. attempt a Grahavendra here in this raga.
The same Hamsadhwani.
Yeah. Same Hamsadhwani comes through the Grahavedam. Da pa ma ga sa ga ri sa ni pa sa ni ri.
the offshoot comes from Madhyamam, whereas in that raga, Andolika, it came from Disha. So the same child is born from a different mother.
Our Guru believed in anything, any new aspect that you do, you approach, aesthetics and sense of proportion is most important. He always used to say that. So when doing Grahavedam, there is a certain amount, quantity, where you should stop and not go further. Because the source raga and the mood of the raga is also important. So it should not become an exercise. Grahavedam should not become an exercise, a strenuous exercise, which is what he used to say.
Some of the Carnatic artists would consider all this a little unmusical, because for them they look at pure music.
Yes.
But Grahavedam is a challenge to your intellect.
Yeah.
So people who are highly evolved
Yes.
enjoy this because it brings out the absolutely intrinsic value of different ragas. So from that point of view, Grahavedam is something that can be
I would like to add here that it is a greater challenge for instrumentalists than for a vocalist.
That's right.
Yes.
Because the same fingers we use, we have to think in terms of the other raga, but using the same fingers.
So actually you are fingering the raga.
Yeah.
Is it possible because the northern Indian music has adopted a lot of ragas from the south? As especially Ravi Shankar ji has adopted a lot and he's developed it wonderfully. But have the south musicians taken anything from the north?
Yes. Yes.
You are sarva sampanna.
Again, whatever we want to share, definitely our Guru's contribution is what makes it very meaningful, what we share. The great vocalist, master, legend, Shri Oleti Venkateshwaralu of the Carnatic music, he always comes to visit our Guru, and whenever they meet, when these musicians meet, the conversations are always about music. And Shri Oleti Venkateshwaralu was also very familiar with the Hindustani system, and he used to sing a lot of Hindustani melodies too. So once when he came, in his long jibba, he had this TDK tape, cassette, and he said, Lalgudi ji, you should listen to this beautiful rag called Pahadi. And those days, Pahadi was not at all known in the Carnatic system of music. And he said, it's my request, humble request, that you compose a Tilana in this beautiful raga. And we would like to...
And also he made there was a condition attached to that. It should be on Lord Shiva, because he was going to use it for Mahashivaratri day. And he was wanting to sing a Tilana in Pahadi on Shiva. So my Guru, our Guru, acceded to both the requests, and we'll play that.
You need to say what is a Tilana.
Tilana is the Carnatic version of Tarana. Like in the introductory speech we said that the Tilana, the status of, I think in the morning we mentioned that. The status of Tilana has really been elevated by the compositions our Guru has done. Tilana is a dance form, musical form, which has a lot of very intricate rhythmic patterns in them. But earlier, the patterns were not so complex. Once he started composing, the melody also was very enriching, and both the rhythmic patterns were very strict and complex. And many dancers have danced to his compositions, the Tilanas. He has recorded his own Tilanas, and he wanted to title them, the album, as The Dance of Sound, because he sees the notes dancing more than the dancer dancing to the notes. So whenever any dancer approached and wanted to choreograph the Tilanas, they always came with this feedback saying we didn't have to do anything, we had to just follow the composition. Every choreography, every footwork, everything is there in the composition itself. So we just follow the composition and the choreography happens. This is what we always marvel.
Hindustani Raga.
So we will present,
Sorry?
we will play,
Hindustani Raga.
yeah,
Very nice.
the Pahadi, which has been also taken in the Carnatic system, a composition of our Guru, a Tilana in Pahadi.
I had only a very small related question.
Yeah.
The treatment of the Raga, any South Indian which we have adopted here, and vice versa. Do you think the Raga is happy about it? No, I tell you why. Because I have heard, because of his intervention, I have heard South Indian music. And I had long discussion with Aruna Sairam and Sudhasar Raghunathan. And for instance, this concept of Baithak is not known to the South Indians, I am told, I don't know. But I think what we need to do, if we can, to exchange certain techniques with the North is applied and learn something from the South. Because what we were playing just now together was wonderful. It was so nice and one could hear it for a couple of hours without any difficulty. I am telling you very candidly. But I think we have to learn from each other's system, and I only hope that something is done about it. I am too old to do it.
So the Tilana again has 3 sections.
Thank you
to
for
it.
coming. He is a great supporter and a great.
कुछ गेस्ट इनवाइट कर रखे थे सब, इसलिए जाना पड़ेगा।
नहीं तो.
So the Tilana also has 3 sections to it. The Pallavi, first stanza, Anupallavi, second stanza, and there is a lot of jati, Deen Taranana. So those jatis fill up the composition, and the charanam carries 2 lines in any language. It can be Sanskrit, Telugu, Tamil. And the composition that we are going to present is on Lord Maheshwara, and it's in Sanskrit. Following that charanam, there is an intricate rhythmic structure to it, which brings the composition to a grand finale. Okay, listen to it.
Just an accompaniment. Whereas in Carnatic, harmonium is a no-no as far as the classical concerts are concerned. It's always the violin, which is the chosen accompaniment for the vocal concert. That brings us to a new element. From the Raga perspective, the Carnatic music is always filled with the 22 Shrutis. So I'm going to ask them to explain that and also demonstrate how it works.
Yes, that's a very technical and complicated subject, and to delve too much into it, this is not the appropriate forum. But having been asked this question, I would like to just briefly tell you that Prakriti and Vikriti. Prakriti is that which does not change. Sajja and Pancham. So Prakriti, Vikriti or Ri, Ga, Ma, Da, Ni. So Ri, Ga, Ma, Da, Ni. So you have 5. Normally, according to the harmonium, we have 2 varieties of each. The flat one, the sharper one. But in this system, even the flat is divided into 2 and the sharp is divided into 2. That's how you get it as 22. 5 into 4, Riga Madani, 20, plus the Vikriti. I mean the Prakriti, Sajjam and Pancham. So I'll just touch upon a simple example with which you can relate. I just play mal counts, or Hindolam we call it, the Daivat. So that is Da one. We call it Shuddha Daivat. In the Raga Saveri, it's a very Carnatic Raga, classical one. The Daivat is also Shuddha Daivat. But you will be able to notice that this is below the stan of Hindola Daivat. That's a fine difference. And also, something not related to this. Yes. The human ear has the tendency to average, the perceptual averaging. When we play, for example, in Hamsadwani, Nipa Gari. So the Ga occupies greater unit of time, whereas Ni is minimal. So our ear, because of the dominance of the other note, will pull it down, because this note is down. So when we play, we have to play it at a higher, at Sajja. Generally it will sound like Rishad. So these are all Maya of Shrutis. That may sound like boop. So, I mean, it's a very, very vast subject. So it is, for this session, this is...
Not that we have understood, but we will nod our head and say yes, it was fantastic. So some prominent Hindustani ragas which have been adopted into the Carnatic system, that is always his dream. How much has Carnatic accepted from Hindustani? So maybe some small demonstration of that.
May I ask a question? There was some discussion and there was some little hot discussion about this subject which we were debating. Why do you practice? What is the reason of your practice? What happens? That is what we call palta. We go on repeating. What happens? पूरा तैयार होता है, हाथ तैयार होता है, गला. And somebody said, no, it's wrong. And I started thinking about it, and it applies to what you have been playing and explaining. And that's why I have taken the liberty of asking this question. You see, when you play the same piece again and again, after the 15-20 times that you have played, your mind starts wandering. But that is going on. Who is playing that? Somebody is playing that because your mind is somewhere else. And that is the subconscious mind. So we believe in Vilaykhani Gharana that if you can convert your playing to subconscious mind, you are very good.
Super.
And that is the real crux of playing great music. So does that theory kind of a thing, because some memory which I can't believe. I mean, for hours together, they play together as if they are one. So tell us the secret.
There is a very beautiful example which you gave, sir, just now. It's like the driver becoming the passenger. After a while, you are being driven. You become the instrument by repetitive practice. Like in prayer, you repeat the same mantra, you get the siddhi. You get the vision of God. Like that, the same notes will give you goosebumps, and that doesn't happen just like that. You have to just forget everything and give it your all. Then only, and your mind should be there when you practice it in every note, beyond which after a point of time the mind becomes numb, as Pandit said, the subconscious takes over.
Thank you.
So we would like to do a short alap of what we call Dvijavanti, G.J.R, which has been taken into the Carnatic system, and there are beautiful compositions, starting with the great composer Shri Muthuswami Dikshita's composition, Shri, and many other compositions, Akhilandeshwari. So we'll just show a little bit of alapana in Dvijavanti.
दफा वो गंधार दोबारा बजाओ ना, बहुत अच्छा लगा। फिर से एक मिनट आपने जरा प्लीज, वेरी ब्यूटीफुल, just 2 lines only, but
Please continue.
add an observation. All the ragas, most of them taken from the north, we have hermeticized it. Like the Italian pizza has become the Indian pizza. Each has a different flavor.
I cannot just stop from asking this question. I restricted myself a lot, but I think I must ask you this question. In Hindustani music, we have Jajavanti, which is Bageshya, and Desham. अभी जो आप बजा रहे थे बागेश्वर बजा रहे थे, तो तुम्हें कहने का मतलब ये है कि दोनों अंग बजता है उधर. I just wanted a little clarification. Please.
Actually, this was an answer to the question which most of the North Indians have. Where is the Manodharma? Now, just the stay on Gamaka, you elaborate all around and show a beautiful color in various shades and luster and what have you. That is the beauty of music, after all. So that is Manodharma. So just because a raga is structured doesn't mean that you are stuck with that. You are not stuck with that. That is only a structure, but the way you interpret it, the way each one interprets it differently in different shades, is the beauty of Carnatic music in my limited perspective. So if we can now move on to some more. Your father was a great admirer of nature, from whatever little that I know about him. We had a conference in the Fine Arts Society some 15 years back, and on strings, and he was the president. And when he spoke, there was so much admiration from the audience because he connected music so well to the nature around us. And as children, you must have had some beautiful experiences of how your father appreciated nature and then connected it to music. If you can elaborate on that.
The way he taught music, drawing examples from nature, even a small child could appreciate, understand, see the beauty that he was trying to impart. He would say, don't skip the notes. When you sing, you have to nourish each and every note. Let's say you have a handful of pomegranate seeds. When you eat them, do you swallow some of it without chewing? How will you get the ras if you do that? You need to bite every single. So the same way, the notes, you have to enjoy every single note, nourish it and replenish it with gamakas, give it soul. So these are some of the examples. And when singing a raga, when we end the phrase, if we sing in a very thick way, he would say you should not sing it in a thick way. Intonation is very important. Look at those creepers. How do they come like a tendril? The end of the creeper is so tender and it ends in a very thin way. That's how you should be able to treat the phrases. It's very important to give that intonation. So these are some of the examples. And in his own compositions, after composing, he would also give his own interpretation, how he sees something akin to nature in his own composition, which we'll demonstrate now. Composition, Tilana and Madhurati, when explaining the beauty of the phrases, he just explained it in such a way. Imagine a dry leaf when it falls from the tree. Would it fall just straight like that? It will sway in the air, breeze. This is the example he gave.
The placement of the notes also, it resembles the fall of a leaf. Mi, ma, then it rises, it doesn't fall all the way down. Mi, ma, da, ga. Before it falls, it rises. Ma, ta, ta.
This is a very popular, famous Tilana office in Mohana Kalyani, and starting the way the composition starts, that itself is a very something unique. And after composing this, he also explained it beautifully. He said to me, when I listened to the beginning of the composition, it sounds like a deer which climbs the rocky mountain and goes there, stands and looks, turns and looks. That's a kind of bhav that I get when you listen to it. So when he explains this way, drawing examples from nature, the student is able to remember that beauty and also tries to bring out the beauty. A great teacher that way.
Any question? सब कुछ चुप कर दिया.
Can lead a sick prayer for everybody. It's the greatest composition by Lalgudi.
In the Melakarta system, Rasika Priya is the last one, 72nd Melakarta. So it's a Vivadi Ragam. And to draw the juice out of it requires great musical sense and aesthetic sense as the composition will reveal.
Somebody who is in Bombay. That he is. So you have very.
Have you any questions?
My mother was not from Bombay. She was born in Burma and mostly from Hyderabad, Secunderabad. But my chitti, my mother's sister, is from Chennai. Was from Chennai.
So is there an intense connect to music?
Absolutely. And of course I'm married to, my husband is here, Srinivasan. So he's a typical Bombay, born and brought up.
So kind of. One mischievous question. you complement each other so well. But are there situations when you have fought with each other? Both musically and otherwise.
Yes, of course we do. We have, not anymore. We have grown up fighting with each other. At least I think I am the one who fights a lot more. And sometimes I don't agree with what we plan to play. Those things, I mean, we mature as artists with all these, small fights.
To avoid fights, the best thing is to say yes to whatever the other person says.
It's a great pleasure to receive you, and I am sure everyone has enjoyed. Somebody should get them and thank them on our behalf.
One last piece.
आप बोलिए ना please.
You need a mic?
He is a
One more.
I'm saying एक बता एक one more piece
One more piece.
One more composition.
No, one more composition, two more compositions, I'm saying. But somebody must thank them on our behalf. That is what I always say. We had a wonderful evening.
Yes. Adharaniya Arvind Parikh sir, Ganesh Kumar sir, and the honored artists. We had the pleasure of listening to you, the talk as well as the music. We are really honored, and this evening is very beautiful. Thanks Parikh sir for inviting us for this beautiful evening. Thank
He
you.
is the big boss of All India Radio.
Prasad Bharati some years back. Now, of course, he has shifted it, he has gone to NTNL. But during his tenure, he has supported the activities of several initiatives of Pandit.
Because I seldom have gone out now because of my age and health. Please, but you have inaugurated me.
So, should we end the presentation with an appropriate Raga? Or a Madhyamavati or something like that? No, okay. No.
We will play a composition in Raga Vrindavani, a composition which is very beautiful in praise of Lord Muruga Subramanya, Kaliyuga Varadu.
With that, we have concluded this session. Thanks to Shri G.J.R. Krishnan, thanks to Srimati Vijayalakshmi, and Guru Raghavendra, who was on the Mridangam. It's a great pleasure having you here.
And I must honestly tell you that we enjoyed it more than perhaps you did.
The matter of opinion.
Your guest says there is a mutual admiration.
I don't take too much strength, but it was really very enjoyable. I think each one can say the same thing. But I do feel that, of course, I will not be alive for that. But both the systems have to learn from each other. And those 6 great South Indians, musicians, and Zakir Bhai, including all the great musicians, we were sitting on one table. And I forget the name, who is the great Ajay Chakravarti's guru and
Balamurali Krishnan. Balamurali Krishnan.
Balamurali Krishnan. He said, I don't want to sit. So then somebody said, 1 minute baithiye aap. And then he was so full of it. And it was a wonderful meeting. And but nothing happened. I wish somebody would do to bring these 2 systems together to learn from each other, I'm sure. Because there are so many things which today, and thanks to him that I have been able to hear this concert. So because I managed to go to South, or यहाँ भी South नहीं तो near South है, to go to. But anyway, I'm very, very grateful. On behalf of all of you, I'm sure you give a huge. So you can see.
It's such a blessing to share some of our
I will
experiences.
find out from my cupboard whether
Your
anything
blessings.
left, you see. That was a really wonderful concert and pleasure meeting you.
Our honor.